Hello. Today we're going to do a little sequence on the ground, all seated or laying down, to kind of get into your hips and let them loosen and open up a little bit. Now, you shouldn't need too many props nearby. You may benefit from at least one block. And if you want some padding, you can always use a blanket or a towel. But we're going to raise our knees for starters. I'm sitting on a blanket, so I'm going to move off my blanket. I'm going to put it down here to the side. Just kind of have your props handy so they're reachable but not involved right here at the immediate present. So go ahead and shift your weight onto your right hand and your right hip, so you're kind of sitting at some angles here, and you're going to separate your knees a bit while keeping them bent. So they're staggered, but there's space between them. So turn and place your left hand alongside your right, so your shoulders are rotating towards the mat in front of you. Now here you can walk your hands out and down, and maybe you rest on your elbows here. I'm going to clear myself a bit more space. This is a great place to stop and kind of assess what your hips are doing. You can always slide the knees a little closer, or bring this left heel back towards your sit bones a little bit more, spreading them wider. Sometimes I like to interlace my fingers and just hang out here. Now you have two options, I would say, other than this for deeper support. If you want to go lower, you can always stack your hands and bring your head down to the back of your hands. Or if that's too low where you are, this is where one of the blocks might come in handy. You can put a block between your palms. It can be high. You can put your head down here, or you can turn your block lower and wrap your palms around the end of it there. One more breath. Then you can lift your head, come up to your elbows. If you have a block, just put it to the side. Walk your hands back, coming up towards vertical. Leave your right hand on the ground and kind of turn your heart back to face more forward. Now your left hip is still kind of lifted here, so you may have some space to extend that left leg out and then press yourself up to your sit bones so the left leg is nice and wide. Bring your right foot in to touch the inner leg somewhere, and just kind of fold your shoulders forward. I always like to start with my fingers on the ground. This is a nice, again, midpoint to start from to see if we need to go deeper or if we need to walk back. So if you want to go deeper, of course, you can put your palms down or walk your hands out in front of you. But make sure your toes are back and your foot is vertical. If this is already too low for you, you can grab your blocks. Put your palms on your blocks. It'll keep your shoulders a bit more upright. Sometimes I even like to put my elbows on the blocks so I can lean forward a little bit and take the weight off my wrists. Just spend a few moments here. Keep this left foot active and awake. Maybe press away through the heel just a little bit. One more breath. Walk your hands back, come up onto your palms. You can put the blocks to the side, just out of reach. And just like you did before, lean over onto your right hand, dip those left toes down, and sweep your heel back towards your sit bones so you're back in that staggered position you were in the beginning. From here, pull your knees together so they're not staggered anymore, and we're going to lay down completely on our right shoulder. So you can pillow your right cheek in your arm here. Keep the knees bent, but swing both heels back towards your sit bones so you kind of unhinge at your hip a little bit. You don't have to be super flat and straight, but you also don't want to be curled and tucked, right? So find a lengthened position at the midpoint. So from here, you can go ahead and stretch your left leg out straight in front of you and put your long foot down on the ground. Now, if this is uncomfortable, blocks can very much help here. Find a block. And you can put a block under your ankle so the leg stays more parallel to the ground instead of having to go so low. In fact, I'm going to leave my block there. But your right heel is still kind of pulling back towards your sit bone, so the legs are very separate. Bring your left hand up to your hip and let the elbow drop so your shoulder sags and your chest opens here. And then start to look up towards the ceiling. Lower that left shoulder down, and you can come off your lower arm and let your arms open a little bit wider. I'm going to move my block for clarity's sake so you can see that the legs are still doing opposite things, right? This top leg is long and straight, and this bottom knee is bent, and the heel is towards your seat. Very interesting twist. All you need is another moment or two. And we'll unwind this position by putting your left hand back up on your hip, rolling over onto your right shoulder and snuggling your right arm back underneath your cheek just like you were in the beginning. Go ahead and bend this top leg so the legs are stacked. And this time straighten the legs out completely so you really are long from head to heel. Bend just this left knee. Bring it down to the ground in front of you. You'll feel your hip rock forward a little bit. That's fine. In fact, kind of slide your left leg away from you and roll onto your belly, crossing your hands and resting your forehead against the back of them. So the hips are facing down towards the ground, your heart, your shoulders, your head, everything is facing down. And this knee is opening wide, kind of in a half crawl up towards your shoulders. Every breath, imagine your hips getting heavier and sinking lower. Focusing on this left leg, go ahead and stretch it long back behind you and sweep it in towards your right leg. Bring your hands back alongside your ribs and lift up onto hands and knees. And you can walk around and drop onto your hip. Let's bring your knees up in front of you. Lean onto your left palm and drop your knees over towards the left. So you're sitting sideways. You can separate your knees a little bit here so they're staggered again. I'm going to move myself back so I'm towards the middle of my mat. And then bring your right hand around and place it on the ground alongside the left, just like we did in the beginning, so your heart is square towards the mat. Hands can walk forward and elbows can come down. As you settle down here halfway between earth and sky, you can adjust your legs, you can bring your knees a little closer, keep them a bit wider, but they should be relatively separate from one another. If you want to go lower, just like we were before, elbows can wing right and left, and you can lay down on the back of your hands. You can always stay up on your elbows, or you can welcome in that block, whether it's tall or medium or low, if you want to wrap your hands around it. Just kind of lay the weight of your head down. Last breath. Lift your head. You can remove the block if you have it. Come up onto your hands. And turn your heart back forward so only your left hand is on the ground now. You should still feel your right hip is a bit elevated. You should be able to stretch out that right leg, flip the toes to the sky, and roll up onto your sit bones here. So draw those right toes back, and we're just going to lean forward, bringing the fingertips down to the earth in front of you. Just like we said before, you can always put a block down, put your hands on one block, two blocks, lean forward, rest on your elbows, but keep those toes up and active. So stay where you are today on this side of your body. You can always slide the palms forward if you want to bring the heart closer to the earth. Maybe 2 more breaths. Last one, take your time. Move the block if you have it, bring your hands back in. Lean over onto your left palm, let the right toes dip down, and swing the heel back towards your sit bones. Now go ahead here, slide the knees together, lay down on your left arm, pillow your cheek down there to that warmth, and swing both knees back so you're semi-straightening your body. It doesn't have to be rigid. Right leg swings forward, bring the arch of the foot down to the ground so the leg is straight. If it doesn't go down to the ground, you can always put that block underneath your foot to keep it a little bit more upright. I'm going to leave it aside for myself just for visual clarity. So this left knee is still back, the heel is still towards your sit bones. Right hand can come up to your hip and just start to turn your gaze towards the ceiling. That'll drop the right shoulder down. You can roll off the underside of your arm. You can relax your arms to the earth. If your right shoulder doesn't get to the ground, just keep your hand up on that hip or draped across your low belly. So wherever you are, another moment or two. Then let's all bring that right hand up to the hip. Roll towards the left shoulder and cheek. Tuck the right arm below you. And bend that top knee back so it's stacked on top of the left. Straighten both legs from heel to head. And then bend just the right knee forward. Put the knee and the inner ankle down on the ground. Start to bring your right palm towards the earth and slide this right shin bone away from you so you can roll onto your tummy. Put your head down against the back of your hands. Every exhale releases the hips. Take one more breath. Then start to straighten out that right leg and sweep the right foot back alongside the left foot. Head rises, hands separate, pull back. Come up onto your knees. Walk the knees forward if you want. Come back into a child's pose. Melt the heart towards the knees, the head towards the mat. Take a few moments to breathe. Maybe sigh out through the mouth. One more time. Taking all the time you want here, or you can always make your way up to a seated position for a few moments of quiet meditation, reflection, or a chance to become still. Tune in, assess how you're feeling before you head back out into your day. Thanks for practicing, and I hope to see you again soon.